And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we're here to start the show where wrestling and anime collide for Weebs of the Ring podcast, episode 78 of Friday Night Smackdown, October 25th, 2024, at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And you know who showed up? The Yeet, the No Yeet, and the OTC. Did they get back together on tonight, Friday Night Smackdown? Is this how the end of the show, where the two brothers, the Usos, finally reunited? Well, we will talk about it, because that's not the only thing that happened. It was Motor City Machine Guns versus DIY, but then they had a second match for the title versus the Tongas, and they went triumph the third match in WWE and became champion. But then, for our crown jewel conversation, we had the Gunther and Cody invitation on Friday Night SmackDown. They spoke. Cody wasn't for the bullshit. He gave the first lap, but then he was alone. But then Randy came, just like Kaiser came to help out Gunther. And talking about Randy has his own issues. He got his match. Triple H trying to protect him. What else is going to be happening for the rest of the night? And Crown Jewel, we're going to have a U.S. title, because Carmelo Hayes and Andrade Game 7 did not get to finish. So we will be having a triple threat at Crown Jewel, because LA Knight being 2 on the top, we will speak about it. So without further ado, let's get to the show.
Oh, with anime in their souls and thoughts of wrestling out of control, tonight we are a duo of weebs who love the entertainment of professional wrestling. So be sure to join us as we go through the wrestling events of the evening, give our thoughts and predictions on what's to come, and provide an experience inclusive to all you nerds out there. So grab your steel chair, yell for the table, and get put through an experience unlike any other. We are brought to you by Animo We Studio, and this is the Weebs of the Ring podcast. Welcome, everybody. Hopefully, you have had a good week. It has been a very good Friday, at least for me. Hopefully, it's been a good Friday for you. And we had a pretty decent episode of SmackDown. Thank you, Vash, for giving your Stampede before having to leave. Unfortunately, he yeeted himself too much tonight because of everything going on. But as always, I am your world champion, Watkins, here to give you the lowdown of the SmackDown going on and all that. But I am never alone in this, as I have my co-host with me. We have Drop This Box, the genius of the mat himself. Drop, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I know you said last week that you thought last week's episode of SmackDown was really great. I would have to say that this one was probably the best that I personally have seen in quite some time, especially when it came to story advancements when it mattered, because of course I do have a couple things that I didn't agree with tonight, but there was more good and bad. So whenever we get to that, you'll hear my own thoughts on that. But I'm honestly like really excited. Like I can't say that I'm excited for the whole Saudi pay-per-view besides a couple of matches, but definitely moving towards Survivor Series and later in the year. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing, what kind of things are going to be turning out of that.
Yeah, and we're going to be having some discussions tonight, and just from our group chats alone, I think we're going to be diving pretty deep in some things, especially with some stories and like some decisions made tonight that seemed kind of just a little in our minds. But again, we'll talk about that. We'll give you the throwdown, we'll give you the lowdown, we'll give you the drop down of everything that had to do with SmackDown. So let's just kind of dive right into it. All right, so we have our big headline story tonight, had everything to do with our tag team division. We had not only a number one contenders match for the tag titles, but we also ended up having an impromptu tag team title match that just bled into everything and anything to do with the Bloodline. I kind of want to start with the number one contenders match first, just because we're going to have a lot more to talk about with the Bloodline segment. So I at least want to give some time for the number one contenders match itself, because it cooked pretty well. We had DIY taking on Motor City Machine Guns, and this is only Motor City Machine Guns' second match in WWE, and they did some cooking tonight. Let me tell you that, fellas. But Drop, what do you think of the match?
I mean, this was the match that a lot of people were anticipating heading into this week's episode of SmackDown, because when you think of two tag teams like DIY and Motor City Machine Guns, you expect them to deliver a great match, because that's just been a common theme that we've seen with them. If there's people that followed Motor City Machine Guns throughout their entire career, you could probably understand where I'm getting with that. Some people are new to them, so they probably don't really understand what they're all about yet. I'm pretty sure they made a big statement tonight, which we'll talk about. But this match was definitely very good. It definitely represented what a number one contenders match should be, especially when you have these two top teams right here clashing together to get that number one opportunity against the Bloodline. Obviously, jumping in, it was kind of predictable what the outcome was, but predictable isn't always bad, because it all depends how you get there. And I felt like the execution with what went on within that match itself, which honestly, just talking about this match itself first, it was honestly like very surprising to me, I will say at first, that we were getting this right away, because this was something I was expecting to see later down the line when it came to Motor City Machine Guns getting a match against somebody like DIY, but I'm not complaining, because yet again, we are pretty much on the stage to rebuild the tag division to where it needs to be, which I'm really happy about, because I felt like Triple H made that the main thing for you guys to really sink your teeth into when it came to, okay, this is where the tag division is heading, because we have the exact same thing being played out on SmackDown, where we have a little thing going on down there, And I'm hoping that this is just them showing us that, yeah, based on what we're doing here, we're going to make sure that the tag division is being built properly the way that it's going to be. But just giving my 2 cents on the match itself, just talking about a few spots, we pretty much saw Shelly and Gargano start the match. And both men, which obviously they've been doing this forever, there was a lot of reversals to start the match. So obviously, one of the main things you got to take in account is when you're going up against somebody in the ring, it's always good to predict their movement so you know exactly what's coming out at you so you can prepare for that. But then we had Ciampa tag in. There was an armbar applied by Shelly, but Ciampa was able to hit an elbow to the face. Shelly then went to the ropes, and then he tagged in Sabin, and then they ended up double teaming Ciampa, and then Sabin goes for the cover, but Ciampa ends up getting kicked out, and then we see that double team on Sabin. So, like, pretty much in a nutshell, a lot of tag team moves being thrown in here when it came to them getting on the offense of the match, when it came to, really delivering the beatdown, when it came to trying to put your opponent at the stage where it's like, okay, we got to get the advantage here so we can progress and move on. But I think one of the spots that I really liked within this match itself is I did like the crossbody that Sabin did, like off the top rope onto DIY in the ring. I don't know what it is, but I always like those crossbody moves. Even when it comes to like the suicide dives outside the ring, I always happen to be really big fans of those spots because it's not like they're spots where they're like mind blowing or anything along the lines of that. It's just a cool spot to see, and it's something that really gets the crowd going every time you see it. And I do like how this honestly builds a little tension between Gargano and Ciampa, because I'm not entirely sure if I was the only one who who noticed this. I'm not sure if you were Vash. Obviously, we can't really. Obviously, we don't know what Vash will say on this. But like when it comes to like talking to you, did you notice that within this match itself, besides obviously talking about what we saw, there was a moment I did notice where Gargano was going for a super kick, but he ends up kicking Ciampa. So I don't know if that's going to factor into anything, because that's another thing, because Ciampa and Gargano are very good talents, and they're talents that you don't want to throw away and you don't want to like kick to the curb or anything like that, because I mean, truth be told, I would honestly come on a rant if they were being booked deep down the gutter, because they definitely don't deserve that. They're a very great tag team. Not even that, they're very great singles acts. And I'm wondering if that's going to play into some sort of story now that they're not in the tag team picture when it comes to their tag team as a whole, because besides DIY itself, we do know that there is some history there between Ciampa and Gargano, because they never were on the same page all the way through. Like, sure, they were best friends and they tagged together and everything like that. But when it comes to, them as a whole, like if people follow their days in the black and gold days of NXT, we did see some tension happen between Gargano and Ciampa. So I don't know if you think it might lead into anything, only to give them like some sort of story to work with. So just because they lost this match, they're not just absent on TV. Like maybe it's a little thing that plays out in like other matches or whatever, and maybe this possibly gives us a way to push either of them in the spotlight when it comes to like Ciampa becoming a heel, which I honestly think is needed, because if you want to, well, I'm not saying you really need to create new stars with them, they already are stars, but if you really want to have another top heel on SmackDown, I feel like that would be a good thing to do if they wanted to go down that direction, because Gargano to me is like a perfect babyface. It's kind of really hard to see him as a heel. But Ciampa, I mean, he pretty much wears that heel persona like nothing. Like, this is the kind of guy that came out with no music and you just heard him showered with booze. So what do you personally think this might lead to? Do you think it was just a
So
mistake?
I'm glad you brought this up because like I feel like this is just like planting seeds right now.
Yeah.
Like because I'm glad I'm glad you brought it up because and commentary did a good job bringing it up too. Like Corey had mentioned, oh yeah, they're great friends and all that, and Cole's just like, are you kidding me? They literally had a last man standing match in this building where they despised each other. Like, come
Yeah.
on, man, you got to remember your history. So yeah, I think we are gonna, eventually lead into it because like a lot, kind of very similar to like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
Gargano and Ciampa have that kind of relationship where they love each other for a little bit and then they despise each other, then they get back together and then they break up again. So like, and I kind of agree with you too. Like Gargano, he had good heel work when he was in NXT doing it, especially with like the way when
Yeah.
they were heels for a bit. But he's more of like the comedic heel in that aspect, where like
Yeah.
Ciampa really does a good job with being the serious heel, like just like what you said when he was like the top heel of NXT. His entrance music was just those boos from the crowd just showering all over him, and he reveled in it. Like, and I think there was a part two where like he refused to be in the WWE game because he was a heel. Like he was just like, yeah, no, I told them I didn't want to be in the game. So yeah, like I'm excited for that. However, I hope they kind of build more into it because
Yeah.
especially with like the casual audience, they'll need a little bit more to kind of be more invested in the story.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
like right now on the card, Gargano and Ciampa, like they're not as high up as they could be or should be in my eyes, but like they'll just need to do a little bit more to kind of build that story up. And but yeah, like commentary again, they did a good job kind of like telling that story too, and also kind of telling the story of the Motor City Machine Guns through the match. Because like they keep bigging them up, being like, they were innovators of the tag team division. They were the ones that like people looked up to and all that stuff. And like there was one comment that Corey made. I kind of wish I wrote this down, so I feel bad for it. But like it was towards see, I've again mind's blanking and all that. But like instead of saying that he was fast or speedy, he was just like, nah, he's basically inevitable. Like he's gonna just be there no matter what. Like that's not just speed, that's just I'm there, I am here, almost like All Might in that aspect. But like yeah, so Motor City Machine Guns go over DIY. Fine, neat, great. A lot of people seem to have an issue with this. Personally, I don't,
I don't
mainly
either.
because of how commentary were putting them over, because they're basically saying, "Oh, they're like the fathers of modern day tag team wrestling," which okay, great, you're telling that story. But now we're seeing the story, and sometimes when you're, engaging with the story or whatever, sometimes showing is better than telling, and you want to have like a good balance of show and tell. You need the exposition, yes, but like I want to see this happen, and we saw it tonight because again, they had their second match in WWE and they beat a top tag team in DIY. Whatever you think of, their booking right now, they DIY are a top team in the company. And yeah, Motor City Machine Guns go over them, and then they immediately have a tag team title match, which they end up winning. Like 3 matches in, like there aren't too many people or too many talents that go into a company with that much heat behind them. Like the one that immediately comes to my mind is when Finn Balor got up to the main roster.
Oh, yeah.
Like in that singular night, he beat. I think Seth was in that one Fatal 4-Way he was in that night.
I know.
So like, so technically he beat Seth Rollins in one night, and also beat Roman Reigns in the same night. Like almost in a way like Chris Jericho beating The Rock and Stone Cold in the same night. Like that's huge, And so for for Motor City Machine Guns to not only go over DIY, but to go over the Bloodline, even though, interference, whatever, but like they still won the tag titles in only their third match. In only their second week, too. Like it took them 2 weeks to win the tag titles. Like that's some impressive work, and that shows that the company sees something in this team and sees something in this talent. And like kind of like what you said too, like this is in a way that the company trying to reinvigorate their tag team division, and having the belts on Motor City Machine Guns is a good way of doing that. Because again, with the whole story of them being the innovators of modern tag team wrestling, having them as your top guys on your show, that's only going to benefit the rest of your talent.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree 100%. I mean, I personally didn't have any issues with this because you got to think about it like this as well. Like, why would they really have them lose their qualifying match to go up against the tag team titles? Because normally when you debut a tag team or a singles talent, whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that you put them out there so they make an impact and they actually have like a way of getting the crowd invested in them so the crowd can actually understand how important they are. So when I looked at the complaints of like, oh, why do they really win this match? It's too soon, etc. So on. I mean, I get it. We have the old regime still in our heads because that was just something that we were used to back then because it was just a thing that played out a lot of times. But we are in a new era. And one of the biggest things to do is to make statements and actually push things the way that it needs to be pushed. And like I said, I didn't really have any issues with it because I thought it made sense. And you also got to factor in that DIY, and even the Street Profits, even though they weren't shown on the show tonight, if they already had matches with the Bloodline before. We've already seen DIY versus the Bloodline. We've already seen the Street Profits versus the Bloodline. So the only other team that you can really throw in there is the Motor City Machine Guns. And since you're trying to push your newest signing and making them feel special, it makes sense why they went over in this match. So again, like I said, I didn't have any issues with it. I thought it made sense. If I was in charge of the show, I would probably end up doing the exact same thing because it's the only thing that logically makes sense. And so moving on, I don't know if you want to tackle what happens next, but
I guess the last thing I want to say with like, at least with like Motor City Machine Guns winning the titles, is because I do like one of my pet peeves whenever like a talent is introduced or brought up to a main roster or on your show and all that. Yeah, and it's kind of something I'm gonna try not to bring up AEW too much because there's been a lot of stuff this whole week regarding AEW.
I mean, if you want to, you can, because it is constructive criticism at the end of the day. It's not like we're shitting
exactly.
But
it's like, you know, whenever like a new, it seems like whenever a new talent is brought into a roster, it seems like, you know, they get pushed towards a title scene and all that. And most of the time they end up losing that title match. Yeah. And it's like, okay, on one hand, I get it because it's like, okay, have them face off against the top person and then have them lose, have them rebuild back up and all that stuff. But then you have the opposite part of it. And it's kind of my mindset with it. It's just like, why immediately give them that spot if they're just going to lose? Especially if there's like not going to be a story going with it. Like, and like, again, story is king, blah, 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 whatever have you. But it's like, if the story is just like, okay, well, they got to now start from the bottom and all that. It's just like, why didn't we just start from the bottom then? You know, which, I mean, that also entails other tropes and all that. But again, with tropes, it's all about the execution of those tropes and how you go about doing it. And that's why, like, with me, I'm fine with this because it's like, okay, again, they're a new talent, but like, you're building them up on commentary, you're building them up in their matches and all that. Why not? Like, again, you're trying to revitalize your tag team division. Why not do this? But I just want to at least say that one point just because that is a trope we see in wrestling, and especially in modern wrestling. But yeah, there's a lot more that goes into this tag team title match like you were getting at because, again, Bloodline involved. They're going to get involved in the match however which way. And Jimmy Uso and Roman Reigns end up coming out to basically run out Solo and Jacob, which, okay, nitpick, but Jacob Fatu eating a Superman punch and then just falling down. I don't know how I feel about that.
I didn't even notice it, but...
Yeah, but again, that's kind of a nitpick.
I mean, to be fair, there's people bitching and complaining because Cody had a dark match with him on Raw, and Cody ended up pinning him. But to be perfectly honest, it's a dark match, and I can honestly care less. It's just a fucking dark match.
Thank you.
And it's also, it's not like him losing to like a nobody. He's losing to Cody Rhodes.
Yeah.
So if anything, that's enhancing him and actually putting him in the picture of one of the top guys in the company. It tells you that he's a pretty big deal if you don't know he's a pretty big deal already. So it's like,
yeah.
So I didn't
again, it's a dark match.
Yeah, I know.
Like that's for the fans, but in attendance.
Yeah.
But yeah, like.
But yeah, personally, I didn't even notice that whole Superman punch on Jacob Fatu, to be perfectly honest. But like at the end of the day, I mean, if I saw, I don't really have any comments towards it anyway. I mean, I guess what I can say is I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to really say anything about it. I don't think it does anything to him really, because it's not like he's being treated like Solo. I mean, that's a good example to bring up, because at least with Solo, you know, he makes all these claims and he gets his ass handed to him every single week. Well, if Jacob Fatu, if he takes a couple of attacks or whatever, I mean, I think he'll be fine. It's not gonna really do anything to him.
Yeah.
But
again, like it's more nitpicky than anything. But it was one thing I saw him just like okay, fine.
I mean, I guess you could probably I mean, that's more of a nitpick than the bitching that people online had on Monday. So
oh my gosh, I remember seeing that stuff Tuesday morning. I'm just like, you people, are you serious? Are you serious right now? You're seriously complaining about that? Like, you're complaining about a dark match. Like, where was all the complaining when Jey Uso was making Damian Priest yeet when he was world champion? Like, in the dark segments.
Yeah. They didn't
say anything. Where was all that at? Exactly.
They only bring up things when it's, I guess it matters to them. And for the most part, it's like literally nothing.
Oh, good.
But yeah, pretty much like getting into this whole thing itself. I will say this though. I didn't expect the match tonight, only because I thought they were going to leave it as an angle next week, and I thought everything was going to play out the way it was last week, and then we were going to have some other thing happen with Bloodline tonight. But I'm not against it, because again, it adds to the story, and that's the biggest thing to talk about here. This is the biggest talking point. It's the story. It makes sense. So I have no issues with the match being played out tonight. I have no issues with them winning, because, like I said, this is a statement to be made. And just to talk about the guns, I mean, to talk about the Motor City Machine Guns first, before we talk about the Bloodline, you know, before we get onto that whole thing, because that's a whole different topic that we'll talk about. But I'm hoping what they do here is improve the tag division, actually make it feel special, actually give it some meaning, so whenever we're tuning in every week and we see certain stories played out, we can actually get invested in it. Because that's one of the things, unfortunately, that I've noticed within wrestling right now when it comes to certain companies that I do watch, because I don't watch every single company, but I do notice that the tag division, when it comes to giving it life, has been toned down for a little bit. So I'm hoping what Triple H is doing, which I'm pretty sure it is what he's doing, is actually make it actually mean something. So it's like, okay, you know, we got the Motor City Machine Guns as the new tag team champions. Okay, let's build off of that. Let's make them treat those tag team titles like they're the most proud, like they're the most valuable possession on earth, kind of like with Cody Rhodes and the WWE title, like making it feel like it's the most important thing in the world, and actually giving it life and everything. So that's what I'm hoping we get moving forward, because then from there you can actually garner all these different kinds of tag teams and actually try to grow them and actually make them feel special. Because one of my biggest issues, and this is the same issue I have with Judgment Day, because this is a thing that I normally bring up on Mondays, is the way that things are going on with the Bloodline. And trust me, me and Walkman's will be talking about like everything that goes on with the Bloodline soon. But one of my biggest
Yeah.
issues, I guess I can throw Judgment Day in here as well. One of my biggest issues with both
Yeah.
of them that's currently going on is that they both have gold on them. Do I understand why they have gold? Yeah, because they want to look like a big deal. And when you have gold around your waist, I mean, that's a sign of you being a big deal. But when it comes to how it's being handled, that's the other thing. How it's being handled, it's just being used as like a prop that they're carrying around. They're not really defending the titles every week. They're not really making them feel like a separate story in itself outside of the bloodline or everything. It's just something that they had. So with what's going on currently with them, it doesn't really need any gold, which is one of the things that I was hoping for to see once we got to this point of the story between the Bloodline and Bloodline 2.0. So I'm happy that we're going down this direction because this story is bigger than the WWE title. It's bigger than the tag team titles. We do not need anything like that involved. And I'm glad that we're going down this direction. So this is probably a perfect segue if you have any other things that you personally want to say on your behalf.
You pretty much hit the nail on the head because it's like the bloodline is kind of bigger than the titles, which it's kind of weird to say if you think about it. Like, oh, a group is bigger than the titles, like your own company's titles. What? Why is that a thing? But like, they are, because it's all about like, yeah, and I'm sure the argument there is just like, oh, well, wouldn't you want to have the titles to show that you're, in charge, that you're at the top of the food chain and all that? It's just like, well, yes, you do, but there's a lot more that goes into this whole bloodline storyline, and it all has to do with being the tribal chief and all that, and like who truly is that. And you don't need the titles. You don't need to, bring down your other divisions in order to tell this big story that you're telling. They can be separate from all of that. You're about to, from reports and all that, you're about to extend SmackDown to 3 hours starting in the next year. Raw's going to be close to around 3 hours on Netflix at the beginning of the year, because I mean that story also keeps changing depending who you ask, what news outlets. So yeah, you want to have different things going on. You want different threads to go on in your product and all that. So yeah, now that they've dropped the titles, now that Temu Bloodline doesn't have to deal with those anymore, they can now focus, and like we can just hone in on the bloodline civil war that's going on, because now they can just go after each other, stop, interfering in their matches for titles, stop holding these titles hostage as well.
Yeah.
Like they don't need to do all that.
No.
So
that was my biggest issue, like in the past when Vince was still there, where they just had the titles just for the fuck of it, and then you had Brock Lesnar going around with the Heinz ketchup title and coming back whenever he wanted, and it didn't really give any opportunity for anybody there to really fight for anything.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that all of that's removed, and I'm honestly very excited to get into this bloodline discussion, though, because like I said, I wanted to give the Guns some time to talk about them and give them their credit. Congratulations to them, of course. But
exactly.
Bloodline. Actually, since we are starting the Bloodline thing, another thing I do want to throw in there when it comes to the Guns is I'm actually glad that Triple H incorporated what happened with the Motor City Machine Guns tonight with the Bloodline, because with them being involved with the Bloodline and the pop that they got with all the confetti and everything also made them really stand out as well, considering that they were a part of that big angle. That is one other thing that I do want to throw in there before we move on. Yeah,
because again, they were part of it, so that shows trust in them. But yeah, let's hearken on this tale with the Bloodline, because after Roman and Jimmy came out to run interference and all that, we were just left with the tag teams out there. So who's gonna come out and do anything to interfere and all that? Because now everything's even. But again, Bloodline storyline, so nothing's really truly even. Well, another man in a balaclava comes out and just yeets all everywhere, but it's just like, wait, why is this person yeeting everywhere? Like, yeeting happens on Mondays. Why are we yeeting on a Friday? That's because good old Jey Uso's here to get some sweet revenge on the Tongas
Were you about to
and
say
cost
chin music?
them their titles.
I have a feeling.
Oh, with a good old one.
I thought you were about to say sweet chin music.
Nah, not yet. Nah, that's the thing, man. It's like the super kick is just dead.
Yeah.
The super kick is dead. I mean, as much as Shelton Benjamin wants to keep using that same spot over and over again, which is a good spot, and it looks really nice. The sweet chin music's dead.
Oh yeah,
it's dead as a finisher.
Yeah, sorry, Sean.
But yeah, Jey Uso comes out, costs the Temu Bloodline their titles, and not only that, but we get finally
The Rock,
the reunion. No, the final boss isn't here. Nah, screw the final boss. He ain't here. We're not going to have to worry about him because the Usos have returned. They are back. They have reconciled. It seems like we might be getting some double yeets going on. I can't wait. I'm excited. And it's funny coming from me because, like, I know I've been one to be like, okay, we got to be careful with this story. We got to, treat it very nicely and very cautiously because there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, especially for those that have been in abusive relationships and, whether it's family, whatever have you. But, like, with this story, with Jay and Jimmy coming back, that's fine. Because when you look at what happened with them, that's something that I feel like two siblings can kind of get over and like talk through and like actually kind of come together with and all that, So that part I'm not really bothered at. It was always what we were doing with Roman. And what we did tonight with that was exactly what I needed. I know. Other people probably, I don't know, I haven't really looked online with that aspect of it, but the fact that we had Roman on the stage, looking on,
the body
and looking
language.
so sad. Yeah, exactly. The body language, the facial expression. Like, this is what I was talking about, I believe it was last week, where he gave that apology to Jay, but like, there was part of me that felt like, okay, this, like, his full heart isn't in it. He doesn't mean these words. He's just saying them so that way he can have another person on his side. And his facial expressions tonight just solidified that thought in me just 100-fold. Because, yeah, now he's realizing that he actually has to try. He actually has to give more of an effort in order to have Jay on his side, in order to have that backup going into War Games. So I thought this was done really, really well because again, Jimmy and Jay, they can come back together much easier than Roman. But I'm sure you've got thoughts as well with all of this. So let me hear your rundown of everything.
Yeah, so I do realize that there was a lot of people that had issues on Monday, which we already talked about on Monday, but I'm still gonna bring it up because it counts with what we're talking about right now. But I do realize that there was a lot of people on Monday that had issues with Jay losing the Intercontinental title to Braun Breaker. Do I understand why? Sure. But at the same time, like we spoke about earlier, the story is bigger than the titles, and you had to give Jay a legitimate reason to get involved in the Bloodline again. Like, I understand there were some people out there that were like, oh, well, it would be cool if Jay had the title going into the feud. It would show how much he progressed. We've already seen that progression. Even Roman took some mind to it, saying how proud he was, even though it didn't really look like he meant it, but there's still some acknowledgement there, and we as the fans follow Jay's journey, and we know he earned his stripes to get to where he is. But again, like I said, you don't really need the titles here, and you had to get Jay involved because there's no way this story was going to play out without Jay getting involved. So that's your reason, because if you're just throwing Jay in there just for the hell of it, people are going to complain, okay, why is Jay there? We need an explanation how we got to point A to point B. There's your explanation. What we saw played out into Monday carried on into Friday, and it made sense why things played out the way it did, because it really wouldn't make much sense if Jay loses his title, and then he notices that his cousins have a match on against the Motor City Machine Guns, and it doesn't really seem right for him to just chill there and let it happen. Like, obviously, he knows they're the very reason why he lost his title, so he wants to cause them the exact same pain that he felt. So the way that he came out there with Jimmy and Roman and Jay, it made sense why things played out the way it did. And also, it's just been an ongoing issue of the constant attacks all the time, so it made sense why everybody was there. But especially with Jay, just pretty much putting the nail in the coffin there, it made sense why things played out the way it did and why they lost the tag team titles within this match. And I was one of those other people as well that was very curious to see how they were going to handle this whole entire thing between Jimmy and Jay reuniting, because when it came to them, I knew it was eventually going to happen, but I still wanted them to make some sense out of it. They made some sense out of it. The story called for it. It made sense because of how everything was going on tonight. And seeing them reunite again, just looking at how they haven't been together for so long, it just it was just a very good moment. But like Watkins said, the thing that I was more interested in, not saying I don't care about that, because of course I do, but the thing that I was most interested in, of course, was Roman and Jay, because you look at the history that they've been through, you got to make sure that you take your time with that, or you write it in a way where it makes sense, where we get from point A to point B when it comes to Roman and Jay being on the exact same page again, because Roman caused Jay a lot of shit. So obviously you gotta be careful of how you write that certain story. So we'll see how that plays out next week, but that body language alone, just like Watkins said, it's a nice change of character for Roman, because before he was desperate. He just wanted people with him because he just wanted to get everything back the way he is. This is another reason why I said last week that I'm happy that Paul Heyman isn't around, because I feel like if Paul Heyman is around, not saying we don't want him there, because of course we do, but but the main reason why I didn't want Paul Heyman involved right now is because it's nice to see Roman struggle on his own and actually figure out how he's going to get through these different situations that he puts himself in. So it's nice to see his reaction to Jimmy and Jay tonight reuniting, having that good moment, seeing the crowd pop, and just looking at Roman's facial expressions, the way that the show ended off, where it's like, you know what, I'm finally starting to understand, the importance of family and what it means for them to be around them. Because Roman has to take into account that if it wasn't for Jimmy and Jay and even Sammy, he wouldn't be where. Well, you can even throw Solo in there. He wouldn't be where he was, getting all these different kinds of accomplishments, winning all these different kinds of matches. He wouldn't be where he was if it wasn't for them. So I like how Roman's starting to come to terms with that. He's starting to understand everything around him, because that's the path that he needs to be on. And it just, in that right there, just shows some good character growth from Roman when it comes to the very first step of us getting there. And that's something that can really appreciate it, because I'm not a fan of one-dimensional characters that just do the exact same thing all the time, and it's just something that we have to adjust to. I like how there's layers to a character, where we see their struggles, we see these different kinds of stories being played out when it comes to whatever they're involved in, like I talked about a little bit ago. So I personally loved how they ended that angle tonight with the Usos and Roman. It was very well done, and obviously,
and plus,
the way they ended the show, it gets you really excited to tune into next week. I know there's spoilers online, but for people who don't have access to social media, which, I mean, God bless, because I couldn't be able to handle that. But it just gets you in that mood. You're like, holy shit, that was a crazy angle. What's gonna happen next week? Like, that's good television.
Yeah, exactly. And like I kind of want to backtrack a little bit to like the whole aspect of Paul Heyman not being around, because this is again, it just speaks to like the character growth that Roman needs to make. Is now without the wise man around, he has to be his own wise man,
Yeah.
and he has to learn like how to think like Heyman does in a way. And like even with Heyman coming back, I could see like Heyman being like, you don't really need me, Roman. Like you're good now, and like them kind of almost closing the book on that in a way, because like not saying Paul needs to go away from Roman, but it's like story wise, like this is all about Roman standing up on his own. Like, yeah, he could still have a wise man in his corner, but it's like it's almost very similar to like having like a sensei or something, or like a master that's taught you something. It's like, yeah, you were my master teaching me this technique and all that, and now that I'm better than you, well, you're still my master, like Goku doesn't go over to Roshi's place and just like, oh hey, what's up, Roshi? No, he still calls him Master Roshi, because he's still his master. Like same with Korin, it's just like it's Master Korin, it's Korin Sensei or whatever. Like Kakashi, I could keep naming any different number of anime, manga, whatever, but it's like it's all about like that respect thing. But like Roman is having to become his own wise man here, and again, just with the facial, like that was such a good touch. Like just having him out there just alone, like realizing, crap, I actually do have to try. Like, and like you could tell that it's kind of eating at him, because he did have a family, or at least he thought he had a family, and then now he's realizing just how much of a crap person he was, and how far he really pushed people away and all that, especially Jay. Like Jay was the heir to the kingdom. Jay was the guy who was supposed to take over when Roman stepped down, and instead Roman pushed him away. Like, see, that's the other like thread in all of this too that I'll keep arguing about. Like, eventually I think Jay is going to become the tribal chief of all of this. Like, I feel like that's part of this too, and I think that also has to deal with like The Rock and all that. But see, that's just getting way into the future with everything.
That's something that we'll probably be talking about around like early next year.
Exactly. So it's like, there's a lot of threads going on, a lot of story to be told, and a lot of character work being done, and I'm just so impressed with it. Like tonight, just that closing segment. That closing picture of just seeing Roman all, I'm alone, you, the family. Like, just having him show that emotion, like showing emotion, showing that you're a character. And like another one too, Solo, like the past couple weeks has been really good on the mic. Like he's actually like showing character, like almost back to when he was on NXT, like kind of joking a little bit, but like he's still like pulling off this intimidation factor, being this Temu tribal chief and all that. Like just him in the ring tonight being like, yeah, you guys could do it, but come on, man. Like it shows that he's cocky enough to be a leader like this. And it's something that I really appreciate.
Yeah, I absolutely like I said, I mean, it's not much to really say. I mean, I pretty much already expressed how I felt. Like, it definitely gets you engaged to tune into next week's show, which is the good thing about this.
Exactly, and that makes good television. But I think we're pretty set with moving on. I think with the Bloodline, we'll have more stuff, as the weeks continue on. So we're gonna transition now. We're gonna move along because we do have Crown Jewel next week. We have some matches. We got like 3 matches announced too tonight, which that's crazy. They just like threw a lot at us tonight.
Yeah,
but one of the matches we have is, of course, for this big, beautiful, wonderful Crown Jewel title that Vash... Good thing Vash isn't here to gush about the title, because I'm tired of hearing him gush about how much he loves the title, how much he loves the look of the title. And
very
all that,
annoying, very annoying. Like, I have to mute him half the time because he, like, glazes that title way too much.
I know. A shame he doesn't like the the idea of the title, though.
Yeah.
Just very, very much of a shame. But yeah, so we have Cody Rhodes face to face with Gunther tonight, and I mean the promo battle was really good. I thought I had a tweet like this too, saying something similar to this. It's like we have a tale of two champions here. We have one who's the workhorse. He's the one that's putting on a lot of matches. I don't want to say more than Cody, because Cody does put on a lot of matches even in like the live event scene. But I mean, Gunther's also going, across the season, all that stuff. But like, Gunther's basically the workhorse. He's the one that's like putting it all in. He's the one that's like on television. He's the one that's almost wrestling every week. Whereas with Cody, he's more of the company champion. He's the one that's like the face of the company, the one doing the media rounds, the one that's like going to wherever they're going in Vegas. I'm blanking on that.
Yeah, he mentioned to Cody yesterday that he was in Vegas doing media rounds and talking about WrestleMania 41, which I did see clips of that yesterday.
Yeah. So, these two are going a little bit back and forth, and like kudos to Cody, because he always finds a way to make me care about what he's into. Like, even if I don't like the concept of the Crown Jewel title, he at least makes me feel invested in it. And that's something we had mentioned last week too, but like, especially with this promo battle, like it really did something more too. Cause like Gunther, I mean, there was one thing I saw online that people were kind of iffy about. It was a whole it was when Cody was just like, "Oh, you're just sitting at home doing nothing." It's just like, well, that argument could go if it was like somebody like Brock you were facing, and it was like 2017, 2018 time where he was barely showing up.
I guess the best way to really sum up what he said, it's like pretty much bragging rights. I mean, that's pretty much what this Crown Jewel Championship is. It's just bragging rights. Who's the better guy out of the two main champions? So what Cody said right there was pretty much just bragging rights, just showing the responsibilities that he personally believes in, that he's doing, compared to Gunther, who isn't really pursuing anything like that. So that was just him putting his foot in the door, saying, hey, I'm doing everything right the way that it's supposed to be done. Look at you, what are you doing? Yeah. So I understood what he was saying, but I also understood, why people were thrown off by it. Because I will admit, and this is going to be an ongoing theme on Monday, on Friday, and on Sunday. I mean, on Saturday, next Saturday. I don't give a shit about this fucking title. I think it's a waste of time. No. It's just a thing for the Saudis to have, just for them to have something special. I understand why they're doing it, but I also don't need to pretend to like it, because I'm not going to pretend to like something just for the sake of liking it. Like, that's the thing. It's like we both understand why they're doing it and the whole concept and everything, but at the same time, it's silly. Like, we don't really need it. Yeah. And I'm also getting tired of this whole like carrying it around like it's like some like big giant Willy Wonka chocolate bar. So they're carrying it around like it's like
it's little like they're carrying the Pelican case shit and all that. Like it's like what? Why?
Yeah, they're carrying it around like it's like a golden ticket to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, and they're afraid that it's gonna slip out and somebody's gonna take that golden ticket and meet up with Willy Wonka and just swim in the chocolate fountain. Like it gets like I get it, it's this big crazy title and everything, but I mean, come on, man, you don't really need to do all of that. But it's like,
no,
I will say that I appreciate the effort that they are putting into the match, like you said, because that's one of the things that you need to do, especially if you're working for this company. When it comes to things like this, you need to sell your audience with what they're watching. You need to get them invested. So it's like, I understand that point of view. And I feel like they're doing a good job, because both of them are very good when it comes to their mic work. Gunther has done a great job compared to whoever he's in the ring with when it comes to him being on the mic. So I always look forward to hearing whatever he has to say. And obviously, most of the things that Cody was saying throughout this promo itself, because I don't want to repeat everything, but it was pretty much like company guy things that he was saying. Like that's pretty much what it was in a nutshell. Just being the company guy, doing this and that. That was a lot of Cody's dialogue in here. Just the baby face method. It's just like the baby face promo that you expect from a company guy. That's what it was. Was it bad by any means? No, because that's sort of how I expected this segment to go. And same thing with Gunther when it came to the things that he said, which I did see some people on there saying that maybe Gunther cooked Cody in this little segment. I mean, I personally feel like both of them did very good. You could go down that direction, you can go down the other, but that's just the one main thing I can say. I don't personally care for this match, as I said. Well, I do care for this match. Obviously, it's Cody and Gunther, but I just appreciate the effort that they're putting into this match, and we see that. Another thing I do want to say as well is I like how Cody got a little serious towards the end, because for the most part, Cody's like pretty much just, he's very calm. He tries to be collective when it comes to certain situations he's in, unless he's provoked. And I kind of liked how when Cody like hit Gunther in here, like, you know, hitting the first move and stuff like that. I thought that was nice to see, because we don't normally see Cody doing that all the time. And we do have Randy Orton coming out after that. And an interesting thing that I want to point out, just like how we brought...
You looked at that title again.
Yeah,
you looked at it again.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because it was a similar conversation we had earlier with DIY, because it feels like it's slowly planting seeds to something else, where normally you would think, you know, Cody's out there getting tag teamed by Imperium. You would think the very first thing that Randy was going to do is to, you know, lift up Cody, then hand him his title. But he ends up handing his title to he ends up picking up the title first, then handing it to Cody. And this has been an ongoing theme with Randy Orton for quite some time. And we will talk about Randy Orton, because it also is another very important discussion when it comes to a lot of the main segments that we're going to be talking about. And that's just telling a little story there when it comes to that potential Orton and Cody feud, which I'm not entirely sure when that's going to play out, because personally, The Rock is a big factor when it comes to Cody's plans, especially heading into WrestleMania, because of what we saw earlier and how we know the story isn't over between the both of them. So it's kind of hard for me to really predict when this match is going to come, because I don't want them to just rush through it and then just throw Rock in there. I kind of want them to just... I mean, I personally wouldn't be against them waiting until whatever's done with Rock, and then once we come out of WrestleMania this year, if you want to build this program throughout the summer, I mean, I would personally want to go down that direction. I don't know if I really want to have a winter program with them and then just end it off right there, because... just like how we saw with Cody and Roman with the story that they had with that match for the past 2 years or so, there's lots and lots of history when it comes to Randy Orton and Cody, and it's kind of hard to just go through that in a couple months and then just end it off right there. So I would personally save that for an after Mania program, but that's besides the point. Like, we do have this tag match between Cody and Randy against Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser, which I would assume is probably the main event next week on SmackDown. So we do have something like that to look forward to.
Yeah, and I do want to point out too, and I'll probably mention this again too when we get to the Randy KO stuff.
Yeah.
Cody did have a comment this week about Mania, basically saying, okay, like, everybody can speculate, everybody can think of, oh, this is what's going to happen in Mania, this is what things are settled on, and he tried to tease a little bit, being like, what you think might happen may not actually happen. So I'm just gonna, you know, for a bit of foreshadowing, just remember that little line here, folks, as we continue on forward. But like, the only thing I wanted to point out with this segment with like Gunther and Cody is, in a way, this is kind of a good, like, a decent stopgap for this whole year of Cody being WWE champion, because like now, because we keep seeing him lose allies more and more as the year goes on, as he's holding on to that title longer. Now the only one that really came out to help him was Randy, and even though he had that, Randy's still looking at that title like it's a long lost lover and all that. But like Gunther's trying to like refocus Cody in a way, because like Gunther, again, being like this workhorse champion and all that, he's somebody that's like, he's more there for the prize, like, because again, he's saying that he has the guts to say no. So like, no to these media calls, no to the boss, no to this, no to that, no to this, no to that. Like, the only thing Gunther wants to do is beat people, and people that he thinks are worthy of him and of that championship. And that's why he keeps saying no, because he's the prize fighter. Like, as much as KO wants to call himself that, Gunther is the prize fighter. He is there to beat the top stars, to make the name and legacy for himself for when he's eventually, retired and all that stuff. So that's why it's just like, okay, yeah, great, Cody. You're doing all the media calls. You're like being the company boy. That's awesome. But are you winning all your matches? Are you winning all those? Because like I know win-loss records doesn't really mean too much in WWE, or at least like looking at them. But when you do look at it, Cody's lost more than Gunther this year. So Gunther kind of has somewhat of a point here, where it's just like he's been on top of his game all year. There was one little slip up with that IC title, but besides that, like, he has been on top of everything he's been in this year.
Yeah.
And Cody, I mean, he keeps getting distracted by things. He's lost a couple matches, even if they've been tag matches and all that, but like, he's still lost, especially being the one to take the pin in some of those. Like, Gunther has a point here, and I mean, he could go over next week. I don't know. A lot of people are saying the rumor is Goldberg's going to cost him, which, like, you could set up Goldberg and Gunther after Gunther wins. I don't know. That's just me, though.
I'm not really a big fan of that, because I feel like that's just lazy booking. Like, I get it. They set up an angle at Bad Blood, so that's an idea that comes to mind. So I understand why that's planted in some people's mind, but that just reminds me of like the old booking, where it's like you have a top match between two of your, like, one of your best, like, Cody's a great talent, Gunther's a great talent. You got two of your best guys going up against one another that people would prefer to have like a better played out story between the both of them, considering, who they are. But it's like you have a match between Cody and Gunther next week for that title, and having Goldberg run in there and cause Gunther the match, I'm not really a big fan of that, because it just feels like the old regime, where it's like, oh, we have this really crazy match a lot of us have been foaming on the mouth to see, and then all of a sudden we get this interference out of nowhere, and it just doesn't make any sense. Well, it makes sense when it comes to how it got there, but at the same time, it's like really lazy. And it's just going to leave a bad taste in people's mouth, coming off the program. A lot of people be like, why the fuck is Goldberg there? Gunther didn't deserve that. You can already see the complaints coming from a mile away, which I personally would not blame the people for saying that, because it's like, okay, why is this needed? Because this can easily be a thing that's like set up after Crown Jewel. Like, if Goldberg wants to pop up or whatever, or just call him out and, really trying to get under Gunther's skin, or whatever the case may be. You could easily build something like that. But
the only reason I could see it is because of the Saudi princes wanting it.
I could see it too.
Like that's the only reason.
No, that's the thing. Yeah, because over there they don't care what they get, as long as they get a wrestling show. That's it. Yeah, so
they wanted freaking Yokozuna to come out like years ago. It's just like, here's Temu Yokozuna. Like,
so it's like,
here you go.
I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest, I can actually see it playing out. As much as I don't want to see it, I could see it playing out. Will we talk about it? Sure. Will we rant about it? Sure. Will it make a difference? No, because that's what they wanted there. But I don't know. That's just going to be a whole nother ball game next Saturday if that does happen. Yeah. I can only imagine that conversation once we get there. Like I would have, and because I know like people like even jumping in before the whole Goldberg conversation came up, people were thinking, oh, maybe because of what's going on between KO and Cody now, maybe KO might get involved. But now we know that KO's dealing with Randy now, so that kind of eliminates KO appearing in Cody's match. Because why would it make sense for him and Randy to have a match and then he just randomly appears in Cody's match? Like, it doesn't really make any sense. So that kind of eliminates KO out of the equation, and there's not really anyone else there to really come out there and cost Cody the match because Roman's dealing with the Bloodline. Randy and KO is dealing with each other. There's no one out there that's really gonna come out costing the match. Rock's not gonna cost them the match. I mean, he's not gonna fucking come over there for an angle like that. I would hate that. That would be so stupid, and that just doesn't sound like something The Rock would do.
He just comes out and just stands there. Yeah. Like just on the stage. That's all he does. That's all he does. It's just like, look at my aura.
Yeah, so it's like
chill, dude.
So all I'll say is like I'll say my thoughts on there if we get to it on Saturday, which I am starting to lean towards that because it's already sending me signals that might be a possibility. I already know that's going to give people a lot of chills, or not the best word to say chills. It's going to give a lot of people that anxiety heading into that match just because of that closing angle of how they're going to close out the show.
Yeah, all I'm going to say is if Goldberg shows up on next Saturday, you'll be seeing Lift This Bowl and the AEW champion Enyal coming out as the heel personas.
I feel like all three of us would be heels in that segment, to be perfectly honest. I don't even think Vash. I know Vash for sure doesn't want that shit.
I swear, if he's an Optimist when that comes up.
Yeah.
I swear.
Optimistic Prime.
A super kick to the face.
Yeah.
Even though he's taller than me. But that's besides the point. Okay, well, I think that's a good time to kind of move on and mosey on out of semi-world title picture, somewhat-ish.
Talked about kind of Mr. Viper.
Oh, yeah. Now we're going to get into this discussion about Randy and Kevin. Because Randy Orton comes out, he's been wanting this match with Kevin Owens so badly. He needs it. He wants it. Like, Hunter, just give him what he wants. And literally, he calls out Triple H. And I like how they do this, too, because, like, Orton does go through, like, we see him coming through the back and all that, and he goes through gorilla position, but he stops and goes over and talks to Triple H. Now, I couldn't really see what they were talking about, and I don't think I've seen anything come out online about what they were mentioning.
Yeah.
But, like,
I think it was just him trying to push him to come out there. I think that's all it was.
Probably. But, like, Randy, you know, I appreciate that part because it's like, okay, yeah, he should do that because Triple H is right there. And Randy wants him to give him the match. And it's just like, okay, wait, no, I'm not going to ignore him even though I'm going out there to call him out. No, I'm going to talk to him first. I'm going to make him know, hey, you need to come out here and talk to me. And I kind of like, too, how, like, he calls him out and Triple H's music starts. And then we get, like, that quick camera angle of Triple H in gorilla position. Be like, ah, crap. All right, well, let me take the glasses off. Let me take the headset off. Let me go out there and see what Randy does. And this segment was really good. Like, playing on a lot of history, not only just from, like, KO's history with Triple H and the company, but, like, Randy Orton's history, too. Because, like, Randy doesn't want, like, he doesn't want corporate Hunter out here. He doesn't want Paul Levesque out here. He wants cerebral assassin Triple H out here to be like, you know what I want. Because you would want it too, buddy.
Yeah, and he brought up a perfect example too, because
he did.
Like I even remember, like I actually remember watching around this time because when I first started getting into wrestling all those years ago, my very first wrestling WrestleMania was WrestleMania 23 when we had that match between Vince McMahon and Donald Trump, or like the shaving off the hair and everything. That's when it really started. That's when I really started my journey. Obviously, I ventured back and looked at old stuff, but that's where it really started. But I remember growing up as a kid when Randy Orton and Triple H had their feud heading into WrestleMania. Randy Orton was going left and right, just RKOing everybody. He did it to Vince. He did it to Shane. He did it to Linda. He did it to Stephanie. He just did a lot of stuff to really get underneath Triple H's skin. And then we did see that segment where Triple H came to his house. He was just throwing him around. He had his sledgehammer and everything. He was just kicking his ass. He was out for blood, pretty much. Just like how Jey Uso was out for blood tonight. Not in a similar fashion, not in the same fashion, because, you know, Jey Uso wasn't out there with like a sledgehammer or anything, or throwing people out of people's houses, which I would assume if he was put in that predicament, he probably would have. But Randy was making a good point, because Triple H has always been that kind of person. He's always wanting to, he's always wanted to bring business to whoever he wants to bring it to. So Triple H could probably understand how he's feeling inside when it comes to that. So I liked how there was a nice little parallel there to give the audience that that explanation. So, because I'm pretty sure everybody there remembers that, especially since they've been following their journeys ever since they originally started. So I liked how that was brought up, and I like how they're taking the time to tell this match, because I like when we have proper storytelling when it comes to wrestling, because one of the things that gets us very invested in wrestling is the storytelling, because you could always put on a great match. It's not hard to put on a great match at all. You could put, you know, dream matches every single week. It's not going to make a difference if you're doing dream matches every week just because you sign certain people and you want to get a match out of the way, and then you don't end up, you know, doing anything with them because, oh, I got what I wanted. That's it. Let's move on from that. And then this goes for any company. That's not me throwing shots at certain people. That just goes for any company. You could always put on great matches, but what really draws people in is the story. You think people would give a shit about Cody winning the WWE title if there wasn't a story behind it? Probably not, because it would just be an accomplishment there. There wasn't any story to get people really invested. Look at all that emotion, like when Samantha Irvin's delivery coming out of when Cody won that title. This is why we watch wrestling, because of moments like this. They're treating this angle between Randy and KO like it's a legit thing, because if you think about it, Randy Orton never really needed any protection, because Randy Orton always took care of himself. It was always the other way around, where you needed protection around Randy Orton, because Randy Orton used to punt people every chance he got. And I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if we see at least acknowledgement of Randy wanting to do that once he gets in the ring with KO and Crown Jewel. I would not be surprised in the slightest if they tease that angle, because that's just how Randy was. He's very vicious. The way that Triple H was talking about KO tonight, that was pretty much Randy all of those years ago. Randy was very, very, very dangerous. But to me, the way that Triple H is making it sound, it makes it feel like, you know, this is a different KO. Like, this is the prize fighter KO, the KO that we were used to seeing when he first came to WWE. Like, that same KO that power bombed Sammy on like the side of the ring. Like, this is like the very up in your face KO. The way that Triple H is like hyping him up and trying to protect him from Randy Orton, because, like I said, Randy Orton needing protection, that doesn't really make any sense. So this is telling me that this is going to be like Kevin Owens in a new light, which I'll to it, because I mean, I'm all for it, because I definitely feel like KO definitely needs a new direction. Not saying that anything he's doing is bad, but I love KO. He's a great heel. He's a great promo, great wrestler. And I'm glad that they're giving him some attention and putting him in a big angle with Randy Orton. That's something that I could really appreciate.
Yeah, and I think, like, to kind of go back with like the whole Triple H trying to protect Orton thing, because, like, I mean, he even tried to give a reason behind it too. It's just like, okay, I think in a nutshell, Triple H was trying to tell Orton, "Hey, Randy, we're getting older. Like you just like it's weird that he said you just got back, even though it was like a year ago.
Yeah.
Randy came back, but like Triple H tried to remind Orton, yeah, that's fine and dandy and all that, but like you're older, dude. Like you just got through not only a surgery, but a surgery where they had to like stick metal pipes in your
Yeah.
body.
And there was a
Like,
chance where he never
that-
knew he was going to come back.
Exactly. And I do like how, Orton retorted with that, being like, oh, well, you never know when it's going to get taken away from you. It could be just like with you, Triple H. It went away just like that. But, like, I think that's why Triple H was more trying to protect Randy, because, like, he knows Randy wants to keep doing this for a few more years. So it's like, okay, I'm going to make sure that you don't get into this match with this kind of opened up Kevin now. And I like the reasonings he's given with Kevin. Like, giving again the history of Kevin constantly betraying people, but like he finally found people that he's just like kind of cool with now. So it's just like, okay, you know what? Maybe I don't have to like. And even Kevin Owens has said that too. He's just like, I'm not gonna betray you. I'm not gonna do anything bad. Like I actually kind of like you guys. Like Kevin was doing that a lot with these guys, and then he felt like he was betrayed because of all this, because of like again the whole bloodline thing, like and this is what I love about like stories melding into each other and all that, because like it's giving reason, it's making your stars seem like smart people, not like, well, no, I was about to make another AEW dig, but I shouldn't. That would have been bad. But like, anyways,
to put it in a nutshell, it's like not to insult your audience's intelligence, which I feel like is a fair point to bring up, because you don't want to see something on the screen, know what's happening, but they try to play it off like you don't notice. Like, I feel like it's right to call it out.
Yeah. Well, it's not only just that. It's like it's making your baby faces and your heels seem smart too. So like you're not insulting the intelligence of both your audience and your performers, and your characters that you have. Because it's like, yeah, of course Kevin would feel betrayed like that and everything. And it's like, yeah, Triple H would probably be looking out for Orton, because Orton's able to, at least at this stage, he's able to end his career on his own terms. So I'm going to make sure that he's able to do that by not putting him in a match against somebody who wants to take him out, which kind of leads me into, like, I guess our next point of topic with this whole feud is, like, Randy Orton's future beyond this. And, like, same with, like, Kevin Owens, too. Because, like, there was a report, and, I mean, take this with a grain of salt, because I think it came from Dave Meltzer and all that. But it seems like, yeah, exactly. So it's like, it seems like for Saturday night's main event, we might be leaning towards Kevin versus Cody for that. And, we wonder, oh, well, where's Randy Orton fit in all this? And like, where does Randy fit into like the grand scheme of things? Because like that's a tantalizing thing right there. Like a tantalizing what's the word I'm looking for? Feud and all that. And this kind of gets into like fantasy booking and all that, but hear me out. So like with the KO returning to like this prize fighter aspect, and like remembering, and I'm glad you brought up too, like his betrayal with like Sami Zayn and all that. I think we do get that apron spot with Orton, and we might end up getting like some sort of faux injury angle with that, where like Orton might go away for like a couple weeks or something because Kevin injured him so badly, because hey, you just hit a power bomb onto the hardest part of the ring, and then probably on the ramp, because again, this is a more vicious KO.
No, if I'm being honest, it almost makes me feel like they might as well book this as like an unsanctioned match, just because of like the whole environment and how it feels between the both of them.
Yeah,
and like in a way, just like going off with what you said, it's almost like, as much as Randy's very confident that he's able to get the job done, it's almost as they're pushing KO as the prize fighter again and bringing him back to his weights, because we look back when he had that match with Cody at Bash in Berlin, he was very hesitant when it came to those certain spots that he was going to do, because that's what the old Kevin Owens would do. But now that he's off the leash now and he's able to go out there and do what he wants, it opens the door for, venturing down that direction that he once was before.
Yeah.
So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens, or Randy does get written off TV for a little bit to sell the effects of that match, and then you never know, he might possibly come back at that match between Cody and Kevin Owens at Saturday Night Main Event. I mean, the thing about it is, like, yes, it is coming from Meltzer, so we don't know for sure if that's the. I mean, actually, let me rephrase this. If you look at the story that they're telling right now, it's it's actually not hard to really figure out what direction they're really going down, because you don't really need to listen to like a lot of reports online to tell you what's going on. Is if you pay attention to the product, it tells you what direction they're going down. So I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if KO does go over in this match, and then we start building up KO, because KO realistically definitely needs to, you know, get a couple wins under his belt, because he has I feel like he definitely needs it more than Orton. Not saying Orton doesn't, because he definitely does too, but definitely if you want to build this Kevin Owens character again and you want to have another top heel on SmackDown, that I wouldn't be opposed of them going on this direction with KO. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's the end result with Cody and KO, because again, they have unfinished business. Randy's the roadblock. KO gets through Randy. Now he can venture back to Cody Rhodes.
Yeah. And like with Kevin taking Randy out for a few weeks, inadvertently, because they get twisted in a way that leads to Randy turning on Cody, because it's just like, okay, well, Cody, if you didn't do what you did, then Kevin Owens wouldn't have snapped. And if Kevin Owens didn't have snapped, then I wouldn't have been out for like a month with my back and stuff. So it's just like, forget you, Cody. Like, because that's the thing. That adds just layers and layers upon your characters and your story that you're telling.
Because you never know. He might even blame Cody for not being out there to help him. That's just the kind of stuff that gets brought up, where it's like, you know, I came out there to help, even though it's not the similar situation. Hey, you know, I came out there to help you, and Gunther and Ludwig was like jumping on you and stuff like that. I came out there to save your ass. Where were you when KO was going out of control and put me out for a few weeks? Where were you? Like, you could easily throw that kind of stuff in there.
Yeah. So, but man, this segment right here is just why it's so important to build new stars, because when you start building them early on, then years down the road, when they're, you know, in a position like Randy is, and very similarly, a position that Triple H is in as well, you can play upon that years from now, like 10, with this story, 20, 22 years from now. Like, it just adds so much to your characters, your product, and whatever stories that you're telling. And like, not only that, but like Randy and Triple H are they're masters at their craft. They're so good at what they do to making you care and making you like grasp onto anything that they say. But the one thing I do want to say though is Triple H looks very small right next to Orton now. Like, because there was a time where Triple H was like the big man, and like Orton was the small, you know, young upstart. And now that they're older, and Randy came back from his surgery after probably having some, you know, steroids to help him, you know, recover and all that, you know, doctor approved, obviously. But like Randy bulked up after all that. Like, we can't ignore that. But like Triple H being, you know, older now, not really in the ring and all that, you know, I'm sure he's still working out, but like not as much. And you can kind of tell that he's like kind of deflated a little bit. So it was weird, because like I noticed it, and like I think part of it too was like Triple H was kind of hunched over a little bit during the promo part. But like even still, like he was just so tiny standing next to Randy Orton. It was kind of crazy to just think about.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows like just shows out where I guess it just shows that little journey. Getting older, yeah.
Yeah. We're just getting older, and I hate it. I don't like it. But But I mean, do you have anything else to add with this whole Randy KO segment with especially with Triple H coming out and all that?
No, I think I pretty much gave all my thoughts on that, really. I mean, the real kicker is to see like what we get once we enter that match on Saturday, because I don't really see a KO appearing until Saudi.
Yeah, no, he'll probably yeah, I doubt he might be on SmackDown next week. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but he'll probably have a pre-taped segment that they'll air and all that. So, okay, well, let's go ahead and just move on now, because another story we have is this whole best of 7 series that we're kind of doing, or like what they're calling Game 7 of Andrade and Carmelo Hayes. And this edition has a good old special guest referee in LA Knight, the current United States champion. And, you know, this match cooked a little bit, but there were parts in it where I'm just like, LA, why are you getting in the way? Like, there was one part where he stopped Andrade from doing a top rope plancha or whatever, and he just goes to the ropes and counts, and then Andrade just goes and does it anyway. It's just like, well, why'd you get in the way and stomp him in the first place, dude? But I mean, the match was fine, but then like shenanigans happen at the end where like LA Knight gets kind of mad at both of them because like they keep doing stuff, whether it's like antagonizing him, accidentally hitting him, almost hitting him, like things like that. And it gets to a point where it's just like, you know what, I'm done. I'm gonna beat you both up and I'm gonna throw out the match. We're done. End of story. I don't know where to really start with this match because like action wise, at least for me, it didn't really do too much more than what they've already done.
I wouldn't say that. Like, I don't think this match comes close to like other matches that they had. Definitely not.
Yeah. Like the whole crux of this is just LA Knight as the special guest referee.
Yeah. See, that was the main the main highlight throughout this match itself, is that now LA Knight inserts himself into the picture, because for the most part, when it came to these 6 matches that Melo and Andrade had with one another, it was just them competing to see who's the best one on top. So
yeah,
and throwing LA Knight in there is just only it's just only shaking things up a little bit, which is what they wanted to do. And I mean if you want to talk about like a couple things that happened within this match, I will go over that. So it's like we saw Andrade start the match where he had a clothesline onto Carmelo Hayes. He goes for a cover. Carmelo kicks out. Saw a chop to the chest and kicks by Andrade. And like you said, LA Knight was pretty much getting in the way throughout the entire match when it came to a couple big spots that they wanted to do. Even when it came to a couple pinfalls, especially with Carmelo Hayes, where he was trying to pin Andrade. LA Knight didn't really take any time to really, actually take any time to really do the 1, 2, 3 when it came to Melo actually gaining a lot of momentum. And it felt like at certain points that he could have capitalized there. But, I mean, we got a Spanish fly from Andrade, which is always nice to see. I mean, pretty much in a nutshell, like, there was some spots within this match, and I say some. There was some spots in this match that was really nice to see. But the real thing I want to get into, and I'm trying to fight it because I want to give something to this match, but the real thing I really want to get into, so we can finally start our like a little discussion on like our overall thoughts and how we personally feel about the match. I'm just gonna come out and say it right here. This match was very anticlimactic. And I sort of felt like that heading into this match, because as soon as it was announced that LA Knight was going to be the special guest referee, I already had a feeling jumping into this match that it was going to feel anticlimactic, because again, like we discussed, LA Knight's into the picture now, so you wouldn't really expect either of them to go over. And you also had to keep in mind that LA had single matches with both of them, so it's not like either of them were going to pin one another and have a match with LA Knight to begin with. But I felt like this match was just very anticlimactic, because it just I don't know. It just felt like LA Knight, as much as I love him, he didn't need to get involved as much as he did when it came to we understand why he's doing what he's doing because he's really fed up with both of their shit. But it's just looking at the match being played out, it's like it's almost like, okay, we get it, just get to the triple threat announcement because we know what's happening. And then we got that with him and Nick Aldis in the backstage. Nick Aldis was saying, what the hell are you doing? And then he ended up saying, what, you put yourself in this situation, here's a triple threat match. And the only good I can really say out of this is at least the United States Championship is actually on a PLE because those mid-card titles have not been on PLEs for quite some time. So that's the good that I can throw in here. Yeah. But for the most part, it's just very anticlimactic. I mean, I don't really know what else I could really say to expand on there. And this is what I mentioned earlier when we started the show. Like, for the most part, there was a lot of good. Like, what me and Watkins were talking to when it came to the things that we were talking about in the show, when it came to stuff that happened with the Bloodline and Cody and all of that. But when it came to this, not saying anything about the competitors themselves because they did nothing wrong, because I always look at this from who is booking the stories, not blaming the superstars themselves because they have no part in this. They're just doing their job. It just felt, I don't know, like I felt like they could have been a little more creative with this. Like they could have easily, you know what I honestly could have seen, and I wouldn't be against it. This could have ended up being like, it could have easily turned into like, I don't know, a double count out, something like that, where it's like LA Knight and Melo and Andrade really get at each other. They're doing a lot of crazy shit outside of the ring, or whatever the case may be. It's just some super hot, crazy angle, and then LA Knight has to do a count out or something, and then that's when you get the triple threat announcement, which was the direction that we're heading down. Like, if something like that played out, I would have had no issues with that. Instead of LA Knight just attacking both of them and just ringing the belt themselves, like if they did, I feel like a double count out would make sense just because of how much those guys just brawl to begin with. Like I wouldn't be against with like Carmelo Hayes, doing some stuff outside the. Let's say for example, we're getting a pretty good match, and then Carmelo Hayes just gets really fed up with Andrade's shit, so he beats on Andrade. He puts him out on the announce table. And then let's say he goes for nothing but net. And then he lands it on the announce table, which would be a pretty big spot because I can't really recall Carmelo ever doing anything like that. But it would be a pretty hot angle to insert into their feud. And then you could have like Andrade laid out for a little bit, but then Carmelo Hayes picks him up, or let's say Andrade does something else, outside of the ring to Carmelo Hayes. It doesn't necessarily need to be outside of the ring, but the main point I'm trying to get here, they could have done so many different things to really get to the result that they wanted to do. I just felt like it was, again, very anticlimactic, and it just didn't really draw me in. I hate to say this though, but we've been really into Melo and Andrade when it came to their matches throughout every week because they were very good. They were very entertaining. And it was a simple story being told, who's the best one out of the both of them. Yeah. But I will say it did get to me at certain points where I was kind of waiting for it to be over.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's one downside to some of Triple H's booking is that sometimes he does let things play out too long.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, for some things you kind of reach a point where it's just like, all right, can we be done with this now, please?
Yeah, because
thanks, bye.
Yeah.
And that's nothing wrong with that. It's just like, we just want to move on from it, like, I'll take Punk and Drew for instance, like, granted, some of that had to deal with like injuries and all that stuff. That's fine, but like there was a certain point, and I saw some of this online too, where like some people were like, okay, well, we're kind of ready for this to be over with, and when it did end, hey, it ended, and that was it. That was then. We're done with that. Great, awesome. Whereas like with this, we've been going on this for, gosh, ever since like, what was it, before SummerSlam too, I think.
Yeah.
Like, because they've been going off and on for a while.
I remember
now.
the first day was like July something.
Yeah. So like we've been having Carmelo and Andrade for a while. Like, and again, they put on good matches and all that stuff. And so when it comes to like this part though, with like match 7 and everything, it's like, okay, whenever this is basically another number 1 contenders match. But like the thing is though, we've already had, and this was my biggest problem with like having LA Knight being the special guest referee to begin with. LA Knight technically on paper beat both of them. Whether there was interference, whatever have you, doesn't matter. He technically beat both of them. He had no right, rhyme, or reason to even be part of this match. But Nick Aldis made him special guest referee, and he was just like, fine, whatever. That's my paycheck this week. Fine. Cool. Neat. Whatever. Yeah. All that stuff. But like the way he acted tonight, mainly at the end of the match, where he's just like finally done with their shit. And he's finally like, okay, you know, because, and I asked my wrestling group chat too that I'm in, I was just like, have we seen an ending to a special guest referee match like this, where like the referee basically calls a no contest, is just like, all right, this is done, we're done, I'm done with this, blah. Like, I can't recall any like that, but I do at least with that aspect, with that kind of like idea, I do want to applaud WWE for that, because that is kind of interesting to go about with like a special guest referee, and kind of in line with LA Knight's character being like, you know, I don't know why I'm out here, I don't know why I'm doing all this, I shouldn't be a part of this, but you know what, I'm done with this. Yeah, like ruining all that stuff, and like kind of goes into like the heel aspect of his character. Granted, you know, again, he's a baby face, but like he does have those heel tendencies in his character. And with the whole triple threat, that's basically like him getting punished for all that, because it's just like, okay, well, you want to ruin an awesome series, all right, well, I'm going to ruin your night next week. Triple threat, boom, all that stuff. And like, I think me and you are in the same mindset, that at the end of all of this, at the end of like Carmelo and Andrade, at the end of like LA Knight being involved in all this, I think you and I are both in the mindset that it should end with Carmelo Hayes going over with the U.S. title.
Yeah, and that's nothing. And that's nothing against Andrade at all. It's just the direction that I feel like they should go down.
Mm-hmm.
Considering that this is a guy they pulled from NXT. This is a guy like Breaker that has a lot of potential to grow into something very big that would benefit them in the long run. Which, like you said earlier, creating new stars and looking 4 to 5 years in the future, you could actually lean onto them and actually not worry about telling any compelling stories, because they're already established within the company. But you can continue going on what you said.
No. So like, again, like end goal, Carmelo Hayes, U.S. champion and all that. And like, this might be a way to kind of get through all that with like the whole best of 7 series or game 7, whatever have you. And it might be a bit of a hot potato with the title, but like we don't get that too often, so I'm at least fine with it. So like with this triple threat match, it could end up being a thing where it's like, okay, well, let's say Andrade goes over, so he wins U.S. title. Great, awesome, fantastic. That gives him something. You know, he's come back to WWE. The only title he's won is the Speed Championship, which he still has, I think.
Yeah, he still has it.
Yeah, which cool, neat, awesome, fantastic for you. Good job, buddy. So like him with the U.S. title, even if it's like a short stint with it, there is at least a little bit more for that eventual 7th match between him and Carmelo Hayes, where it's just like, okay, yeah, not only is this supposedly the feud ender, but now it could be for the title, and that could be like the one-on-one that Carmelo gets to get that title. Now, I know that's, you know, not him beating LA Knight for it. I get that part, but like that might be the overall story we're going with it. But like, and this is the thing. It's just like, okay, we see the end point. but how do we get there? And how we're getting there is a bit rocky. Like, again, tonight, a bit of a wet fart, if you will, in all of this, you know? So it's like the road's a bit rocky to get there, but hopefully the end point is Carmelo Hayes with that title.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah,
If not,
that's what I'm
then
hoping
what are we
too.
doing?
Yeah, that's
Like,
that's what I'm hoping too, because like that's the direction I'm heading, and I'm with you. Like, we'll see how we get there. That's why I said to you earlier in our little chat that I'm gonna wait and see like how things play out at the Saudi show to see where the story goes from there, because I'm also not 100% convinced that LA Knight is losing the title, because you got to keep in mind as well, this is something that they've been leaning towards for a while because they want to reward him for all his hard work. And eventually he will drop that title. I just don't know 100% if he's going to lose it at the Saudi pay-per-view. That's why I'm 50-50 on it, because I could still see him keeping that title, and maybe something else builds out of that match itself. We don't really know what sort of direction it's going down. So to me, it is a little unpredictable. I will say that. So I don't really know if it's LA or Andrade or Carmelo Hayes. That's why I'm going to wait until the match happens, because from there, you could, depending on the result of that match, you can get a clear idea of like, okay, this is what we're doing now. So I'm just going to save my thoughts on that unless we see something that happens in next week's SmackDown that gives us a little hint. But I'm definitely going to wait.
Which we could. Yeah,
I'm just going to wait and see whatever happens on that SmackDown. If it doesn't, I'll see what happens on that Saudi show, because at least from there we can get a good understanding of where things go from there.
All right, cool. Well, I think we can go away from there right now to our next little segment. This one won't take too long, because we just had like a quick backstage segment, because like there's been a lot of chaos going on with the women's tag division and all that. You know, we've got Io Sky and Kyrie on Raw winning the titles. We've got the champions on SmackDown, you know, trying to do their thing with
Lash,
Bianca and
Jakara.
Jade. Lash and Jakara from NXT, Chelsea and Piper on SmackDown as well, trying to get a shot. So like all three shows are being represented here, and it got announced tonight that we're not only getting a fatal 4-way for like next week with like Bianca, Io,
Lash.
I think it was Piper and Lash. Yeah. So they're going to be in a match, a singles fatal 4-way on SmackDown next week, but the titles are going to be on the line at Saudi for like in a fatal 4-way match. So on one hand, I'm glad we're getting something with these women's titles. You know, if you guys have been long-term listeners to us, you know that we don't really care too much about the titles, mainly because there's really not much to care about, because WWE's kind of dropped the ball on it. But again, I will applaud when I feel like it's deserved, and they're at least trying with them. And the fact that they have a team from each show as well going for the belts at the same time, that's something good. That's something that like you're showcasing your women's division all across the board, which is always a plus in my mind. And I'm glad this is also happening on a Saudi show, because we all know the whole history with like Saudi and, you know, WWE performing and all that stuff, especially with their female superstars and all that. So with them not only having like the big women's match, you know, for their Crown Jewel title, but we also have the tag title match as well, which has like 8 other women in it. Like that's big. That's huge, at least for over there. So the match is going to hit. I think it'll be fine. But yeah, I guess just your quick thoughts on this announcement that we got.
I mean, the one thing I will say is I am happy that there is more women's representation on the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, so we're not just getting Liv and Nia, we're also getting that tag match. So I will applaud them for that, for having another women's match on the show. But at the same time, it's really hard for me to get attached to these tag titles, because you can put on good match after good match after good match, but that's not it. That's not going to excuse the whole idea behind what they're really trying to do with those tag titles. Like, what I really want out of these tag titles is to create a compelling story, because them all wanting to have the title isn't really that much of a compelling story, because everybody wants the title that Cody wants. Everybody wants the title that Gunther wants. So that as a story isn't really that compelling to me. That's why I'm hoping that we get some sort of thing happening soon with Bianca and Jade, because they're the stars when it comes to those tag titles. Those are the people that people lean more towards, because of people know who Bianca is, people know who Jade is. I mean, Jade's a big deal just by being with Bianca, and Bianca's one of their top competitors within that women's division. If she wasn't with Jade, she would be going after whatever championship Liv had or wherever championship Bianca had, depending on what show she was, hypothetically. So it's
exactly.
So it's like I'm kind of hoping maybe at the Saudi show something comes out of that, where it's like around that time, especially when you hit November, we start building into WrestleMania season, and we start getting those seeds planted for potential matches that we're going to be seeing next year. So what I want, that I would enjoy, is, let's say hypothetically we do get new champions at Saudi, and the one thing I will say is that Bianca and Jade don't need to win every single match, because the way I look at it, they already went through them. They already beat all these girls. So it's like, if you really want to strap the rocket on what's going on between them, losing those belts is the first step. Just like how we saw with Jay, and just like how we saw with the Bloodline tonight and on SmackDown. It creates a story where things get interesting, because then there's tension. Oh, we could have got this if you did that, if you executed that move better. Or Jade's like, oh, well, I tried to prevent the pin, but you weren't quick enough to kick out, stuff like that. You plant that little seed, people are going to want to tune in to see what happens, because people love drama. So if we get a story revolving them coming out of that, I would be happy, because it takes the tag titles being dropped from, let's say, I would personally put them on the Sky Pirates. That's just me. But
oh no, that's me too. I mean, we got Io Sky on my TV screen on a Friday night, so I was in heaven when I saw that.
And a good thing with Io Sky that I will point out is that she's been on Monday Night Raw, she's been on NXT this week, and she's also been on SmackDown. So she's been on all three of the main shows, so that is something I'm really happy. Well, her and Kyrie has been on all the main shows, so that's something I'm really happy to see. But I'm hoping, at least with that, you could start getting a little feel at those tag titles, because those are definitely the girls I believe in that can make those titles feel special, considering how athletic they are, and people just love to see them. I mean, Io's over. That's why she's my personal pick for the Rumble next year. I just want to see that girl get a lot of attention that she deserves. I mean, Rhea versus Io at WrestleMania next year. I mean, I would love that. Revisit
especially
that.
The level that Io's at right now.
Yeah,
like that match would hit.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be so good.
But it's like, I know that's just my own personal thoughts on it. Really, it's like you just got to throw me a bone, so I have something to really work with. Like that's all it is. Because I don't I don't want to come on here and complain about what's going on with the women's tag division all the time, because I rather come on here and talk about the positives and stuff. But I also can't lie when it comes to what I'm seeing on television and how it's not really bringing me in. So that's why I try to throw a couple ideas out there that maybe they listen into, because I'm pretty sure they do listen onto what people say, and hopefully they, throw something in there that I could come on the podcast one day, be like, you know what, I like this.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe we'll get that bone next week in Saudi Arabia. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not Triple H. Who do you think I am? Not him. So, yeah, okay, let's just go ahead and move along to, I guess, what it looks like our final segment here with
Uh,
more of our women's division, more of our women's matches and all that. We have Naomi taking on Candice LeRae. Now, this kind of ties into like the whole build for like the women's crown jewel title, the whole women's title scene as well, because like we had a segment with like Nia and Tiffy backstage. If you wanted to hit on that, because I'm not gonna lie, I had to take care of something
yeah.
when that segment came on.
Oh yeah.
So I wasn't really paying attention too
Yeah.
much to it, but like apparently there were some like hints with things. The only thing I remember hearing is just like Nia saying, basically being like, "Oh well, I have another friend now in Candice, and she actually won a match last week. Like, what have you done for me lately?" But
Yeah.
I'll just give it to you as I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
dying from whatever's caught in my throat.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna go to the notes right now so I can go
Oh yeah.
exactly where that is. Oh
And
yeah.
Chad, hopefully you're doing all right while while Drop's looking for all that. Like, hopefully you guys are doing all right in there. Let me know down in the comments in the chat, any of that stuff. Like, let me know your thoughts on all this too. We'd love to hear from you guys as well.
So yeah, so we did see a segment happen that Watkins was referring to. Well, where it was a clip that happened earlier in the day, so it wasn't happening at this very moment. It was something that we
Okay.
saw earlier in the day, and it was a segment between Tiffany and Nia Jax. And we know that last week Tiffany was absent because she really wasn't feeling well. So that plays into the whole story of what happened between Nia Jax and Candice LeRae when they had their match against Bayley and Naomi that week. And Tiffany was trying to figure out, what she could do since she wasn't able to participate last week. And Nia said that she needed someone to get rid of Naomi for her, and Tiffany says that she can do it. Which I kind of feel bad that Tiffany's like always put in these situations, because I understand that she's trying to do the best that she possibly can for her best friend, which the main reason why they're doing it, because I know a lot of us are thinking in our head, like, Tiffany, I mean, it's right in front of you. Why are you acting this way? Like, come on, don't
Yeah.
you don't have to keep playing dumb. But I understand why they're doing it, because what they're currently doing at this moment is they're trying to help you feel sympathy for Tiffany once the turn happens, when Tiffany actually takes out all of her frustration on Nia Jax. So you actually have a better understanding of like, okay, this is why Tiffany turned, and you get that whole feel for her when it happens, just like how they did with Bayley earlier this year, where for the most part, Bayley was just a ruckus when it came to damage control. So it was really hard to really, have any sympathy from her. But then you saw that storyline play out with her in damage control, and how they kept pushing Bayley further and further down, and it came to a point where they started building a story where Bayley was trying to get onto her feet again and actually call out Io and everybody for what they were doing. That's the similar thing that's going on with Tiffany and Nia. Not the exact same thing, but they're just trying to have that whole, okay, we want you to feel for Tiffany when it happens. This is what we're throwing at you. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And Nia Jax ends up telling Tiffany that she ended up finding Candice LeRae. And obviously Nia is going to be happy with Candice because of what happened last week when she pinned Bayley and helped them win the match. And then Candice ends up coming in and she tells Tiffany that she can stay there and she will handle Naomi. And this is when we get to the match itself. And I don't know if I'm going to talk about the match too much, because for the most part, it wasn't really going on for that long. And like I said, we can talk about spots all the time. I mean, if you want to throw a couple spots in there, I mean, we saw Nia Jax come in with a leg drop onto Candice's neck. And then we saw like a springboard. Nia did a springboard kickoff off the second rope. And we saw Candice runs to the ropes, but Naomi ended up kicking her in the head. So for like the most part,
Yeah.
Naomi was in control of the match. Like Naomi was pretty much out there to get some revenge on Candice for what happened last week, and obviously this is when Bayley comes in, which I understand why Bayley came in, because Indy. We saw all this played out originally, where Indy was originally hesitant doing this at first, but then Candice brought her to her senses, so now she's doing this all the time. But Indy was trying to take advantage of the situation and put Naomi in a position where, okay, Candice, she's out here, just hit your finisher, we can win this match, move on. And obviously Bayley coming out there was her getting her revenge because of what happened last week, because she got pinned. I understand why Bayley came out there, because there's a legitimate reason why Bayley came out there because of what happened last week. And I understand why they're trying to protect Naomi, because she did pin Nia Jax. So in a way, she is owed a title match because she did pin the champion. And I feel like that's probably a story that's going to be playing out after Saudi. But my biggest issues with this is I didn't like Candice LeRae getting pinned, because one of the things that I was really happy about last week that I didn't expect, because when Candice got involved, I thought right off the bat, okay, she's eating the pin, because there's no way Nia is eating a pin again, because she's heading into this match with Liv. And I mean, I hate to say it, but just based on the presentation that they had with Candice LeRae, that's just a lot of that was just a lot of people's predictions. She's just there to eat the pin. That's pretty much what a lot of people were thinking. But she actually pulled one over Bayley, so then a lot of people were thinking in their head, like, okay, this is one of the things a lot of people say about WWE all the time. They need to start creating, more stars and stuff like that. Like, actually have people you can rely on further down the line. And then when Candice pinned Bayley, that's a really big moment for her, because that shows, like, okay, could this potentially lead to something or not? So when I saw Candice get pinned today, I wasn't that big of a fan, because I personally would have ended this in like a disqualification, something along the lines of that, because I just feel like, okay, if you want to build Candice up from what you did last week, you got to keep her strong. If you ended it in like a disqualification, or if you ended it in disqualification, you can protect all of them that were involved within that match itself. You could protect Candice because of that momentum that she had, because now Bayley gets involved, so now this leads into the tag match that we see between Bayley. I'm not sure if that was announced. Bayley, Naomi versus Indian Candice LeRae. Was that announced?
I don't think so, or at least not yet.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, but basically,
we'll have to wait.
Yeah, but basically, what I'm trying to saying, it's like, I would have ended it in an old disqualification, just protect all the girls, so you could keep that momentum going for all the plans that you set in motion with those girls. So seeing Candice get pinned there, it's like, okay, you had her win you had a lot of momentum last week, but now you're having her pinned the following week. Like, that just doesn't sit well with me.
And like, I guess there is one loophole around this that I actually saw like some people point out too. It's just like, okay, well, there was some interference in the match, or at least distractions, and it's like, okay, you're right there. There was a bit of distraction and all that. However, it kind of goes back into the whole thing I said earlier, where it's just like, even still, on paper, Candice LeRae lost.
Yeah.
And it's like that kind of there is some harm in that. Like, it eases the pain knowing that there was distraction and all that stuff. So like, that kind of eases it just a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still would have had her at least look a little stronger than this. Like, because again, you had pointed it out too. Like, she was not in control most of this match. Like, there were a couple times too, where she was, like, before they went to commercial break and all that. Like, she hit this, I almost said flatliner, but I think it was something a little different than that.
Are you talking
onto the hardest part of the ring and all that?
Oh yeah, I think
that spot.
Was that the move she did before the commercial break?
Yeah, it was something where like she grabbed Naomi by like the head and then just jumped down, and like Naomi went head first. Yeah. So Yeah, I mean, she hit that, and you think, oh, well, she's gonna be more in control, but like Naomi quickly got it back in the match. So it's like, okay, now you're also kind of booking her a little weaker than before, but yeah. So I don't know. Maybe if there was anything, maybe because I thought we were supposed to be getting Candice versus Bailey this week. Like I thought
Yeah.
that was the singles match.
That's what I thought.
And like you could have had Indy versus Naomi. Like Indy can eat a loss. Like she's not doing anything
Yeah.
else. I mean, I don't know if she's injured again or not. Like I
Yeah, I
don't
don't
remember the last time she had a match, unless she was in the women's speed tournament. But I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either, to be honest.
Yeah. But yeah, like it just kind of it does kind of blow because it's like we were all like if you guys remember last week we were all behind this Candice LeRae push. Like we were so excited that she got a pinfall over like a former women's champion as well, and like again this is kind of like the downside to like the weekly content and all that. Like whether it's wrestling or TV show or anime manga, like all that stuff like. The weekly format kind of sucks in this aspect is like if something good will happen one week and then like the next week something happens where it's just like it kind of goes back on that, and so it kind of puts that seed of doubt into you and you're just like, okay, I don't know about that decision. I don't know what you guys doing here. So I'm hoping like with next SmackDown something a little bit more happens. Maybe that's when we get the Bailey versus Candice match. I mean, that would be cool. But that's just me, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I would have loved for Candice to go over here, but she didn't. And like again, I get the reason. We both get the reason. Keep Naomi strong because I'm assuming she's gonna face Nia either at Survivor Series or what's it called? Saturday night's main event, unless Tiffy cashes in eventually, which could also be a thing.
Yeah, I know that I know
happens.
that was something people are bringing up that she might potentially do at Saudi, which I don't know if that's the best decision to really do because if you look at it that way, it's like we already harped on earlier when it comes to I mean, I'll give you an example. Look at Kairi Sane coming back at Crown Jewel.
Yeah.
When it came to her reaction coming back, it should have
Almost
been
a year ago.
yeah, it should have been a bigger pop than what it was, but she didn't really have that much of a reaction. And people obviously know who she is because she's been in the company before. This isn't her first go around. She's been there for quite a few years, really. I mean, she was around during the Mae Young Classic all those years ago. But it's like when they had her come over there and debut, the story called for it, sure, but it's like there really wasn't that much reaction there. I mean, I feel like there could still be some sort of reaction there, but I don't know if I would necessarily do it at Saudi. I don't really think it counts for it. Really, doesn't really make any sense.
Well,
to me.
Tiffany does get some good. She does get some good reception overseas. I will say that.
Yeah, she does.
Like
she's very overseas.
So, yeah. So I mean, there is that aspect, but yeah, kind of the same thing. It's just like we don't know how they'll react over there. If she were to cash in. So
yeah,
I don't know. Plus, like, I don't know if I would use a cash in.
No, I wouldn't.
During a Saudi show.
Yeah,
like,
and also you got to factor in as well. They're trying to highlight those championships to feel important. So throwing Tiffany in there wouldn't really make any sense because that just takes all of that attention on that title and just has it solely focused on Tiffany.
Exactly. And plus just do it on a bigger stage. Like do it at Survivor Series. That would be fun. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Or, again, you got Saturday night's main event coming back. Why not do it there? That'd be cool also. Yeah, man, but you know what? I don't know. Do you have anything else to say with all that? I mean, again, like Bailey came out to kind of help out, so that was kind of I did have a quick thought. I thought Naomi again, there wasn't any rhyme or reason, but like I thought Naomi at one point was actually going to turn on Bailey because like when they were saying like waving bye to like Candice and Indy, like Naomi, she went underneath Bailey's legs, which
you thought she was going to pull the same move she did on Candice, huh?
Or yeah, something where like, or like, remember when like Batista, like when Evolution turned on Orton, and like Orton was like on Batista's shoulders and all
Yeah.
that celebrating, and then he just kind of dropped him. I thought that was gonna happen,
Yeah.
but I mean it didn't. But like it was just like a quick thought, because like the reason I say that is because like when Naomi was making her entrance, she seemed kind of off to me. Like her face, like it felt like she was kind of forcing a smile, or like she wasn't really being super dancey or energetic and all that. She was just kind of like, you know, high-fiving everybody and everything. So I thought, okay, is the heel turn coming tonight? Question mark.
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing? Maybe part of it too was like having to go over Candice, because like we know that some of these like Naomi and Bailey, like they don't mind putting over other talent. You know, especially Bailey. Like she went a whole like 2 years almost with like a losing streak and all that.
Mm.
So like they'll put talent over. So maybe it could be that too. I don't know. But if you don't have anything else to say, we could pretty much move on to our overall thoughts.
Oh yeah, we can move on from that. I already said everything.
All right, perfect. Well, hey, you know what? That was SmackDown, and you know, overall, I thought it was a pretty strong show. You know, we had some great surprises, and I wasn't expecting the tag team title match tonight. There's that. I mean, again, I kind of figured Motor City Machine Guns would go over, you know, in the whole tournament thing, but wasn't expecting a title match tonight.
Yeah, me
so
either.
that was a nice surprise. Again, the Randy Orton Triple H segment was just a masterclass in promo work. You know, playing upon the history and all that. Gunther and Cody also had, you know, a strong segment with each other. And I mean, the matches tonight too did cook a bit, you know. Again, the tag matches were really good. Carmelo and Andrade, they didn't like enter that next gear, but it was still good nonetheless. And yeah, just like what we were talking about with our women's division, I mean, I'm glad the women's tag titles are getting some sort of showcase. And you know, despite Candice losing, I mean, the match was still fine. You know, I'm curious where we're gonna go from there. You know, and especially when it comes to like the crown jewel titles, like the women's side of it has seen bared nothing with that build. Like that's just been almost non-existent.
Yeah, because all it is you're gonna attack me, I'm gonna attack you. That's all it is.
Yeah, exactly. And oh, I have a friend now, so they'll be my muscle or my backup. Ooh, whatever.
Yeah.
Man. But Drop, what did you think of the show overall?
I honestly thought this was a pretty good SmackDown. I mean, like I said earlier, this might have been one of their like I could definitely say from a story point of view, this was definitely probably one of their best shows. When it comes to that, like the stuff that we got with Randy Orton, I loved it. With Triple H, I loved it. Stuff with the Bloodline, I loved it. Like just basically in general, it was just furthering these stories and reaching the direction that they need to be at this stage of the game, and having the tag titles on the machine guns. I'm hoping, like I said earlier, that's leading it into a direction where we get the tag division where it needs to be again. And also when it comes to the Bloodline build leading into Survivor Series, it gets me really curious to see, okay, now that we have Jay aligned with Jimmy again, and we have Roman, now Roman looking at what transpired tonight, I'm curious to see what that leads into. I know the results are online. I have not checked it out yet. But just a lot of story progression this night. That's all I'm gonna say that is needed. And obviously there was a couple downs that we did discuss. So all we can hope is, you know, we get a little something that hopefully makes sense. But you know, I'm not gonna be super optimistic about it, saying, oh, everything's fine. You know. I don't know.
Yeah, no, because there's always the option of Goldberg showing up and, you know, throwing the proverbial wrench and everything. So, you know, if you guys want to see that, just hope that Goldberg doesn't show up. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to Ah, gosh. But hey, you know what? That was SmackDown, and this was the Weebs of the Ring. And I mean, I don't have anything else to say. That sounds like Drop doesn't have anything else to say. So, you know, we're just going to end it there. So, if you guys want to check out any of the other stuff that we do, underneath the Animo We Studio umbrella and all that, go check out the description down below. There's links to the new YouTube channel for where you can catch like the Anime Lately podcast, the new show called Off the Binge. We'll be having new episodes of that coming out throughout the weekend and next week. One of them's going to be a Halloween special with Anime Lately, so be sure to check in for that. All your Weebs of the Ring content is going to be right here on the YouTube channel, and we do have Twitter, we do have an Instagram. We just need to start doing stuff on there as well. We have TikTok, all that stuff. Again, links are going to be down below, and to follow us on any social media, our links are down there as well. Mine drops, from Twitter to our own personal YouTube channels and all that. So, yeah, we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. Shonen Ronin should be coming back here in the next couple weeks. So, look forward to that over on the main channel. But, yeah, I mean, again, that was basically our show. So, I'm going to take some time to thank you for taking time out of your day for listening to the Weebs of the Ring podcast. If you enjoyed what we had to say, why not do exactly what I told you to do? It's very easy. Everything's in the description below. Go right down there, scroll right down there, check it out, click on the links, do all that stuff. We are known as Weebs of the Ring on all the social media platforms, and be sure to use that hashtag Weebs of the Ring to interact with us before, during, or after any of these shows. Feedback is always appreciated, as we are nothing without you guys tuning in. Weebs of the Ring is presented by Animo We Studio. Thanks, as always, to our production team of Vash, Watkins, Drop This Box, and Rome with a Dot. Yeah. Yep, that's basically all of us. So, yeah, thank you for joining us. And remember, no stunt grannies were harmed in the recording of this podcast. Have a good night, everybody. And just remember, Goldberg shows up. There will be a lot of heel activity next Saturday.
Definitely. And we'll see you guys on Monday for Weebs of the Ring episode 79 for our coverage on Monday Night Raw. So, peace out, guys.
So go home.